Hello, Blazers. Welcome to episode 151 of UAB Green and Told, original release Monday, June 2nd, 2025. Through our podcast, we are given the opportunity to share stories from members of the UAB community. Listen to previous episodes of Green and Told, the most listened to podcast on campus, at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. While there, I'd like to encourage you to leave a written review to help more alums find us. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. From a young age, today's guest showed a natural desire to care for those around her. Her kindness and empathy were clear in how she interacted with her loved ones. As Miracle Reese will share, she developed a maternal instinct early on, which made her want to help others.
I wanted to make sure I helped nurture and take care of my younger siblings because not only were they important to me, they were my friends.
Miracle's path to UAB seemed almost destined. Even as a kid, a quick car ride past the School of Nursing ignited a strong determination that would guide her towards her dreams.
Someone in the car pointed it out to me. And when they pointed out to me, I said, I'm going to go there. And that was years before I made the actual decision to attend the School of Nursing.
Plus, we'll steep ourselves in the story of how Miracle became captivated by her grandmother's homemade remedies and teas, which not only provided comfort, but also brewed in her an appreciation for natural health practices.
She believed in natural remedy. She would make her own salves and taught me those recipes, and she would make her own teas. And I was very fascinated with how grandma's tea specifically would make me feel better.
The oldest of three sisters from Tuscaloosa, Miracle Reese took on the role of caretaker for her younger siblings, developing a strong sense of responsibility early on. Her grandparents, both educators, played a big part in her upbringing, teaching her the importance of knowledge and compassion. With a deep desire to help others, Miracle pursued a career in nursing, one that's shaped by her family and the strong bonds she shares with them.
I was a little mom, if you want to call it that, but I also was the caring, nurturing big sister. Always had these leadership qualities about myself. And then I knew early on, like at the age of 5, that I would be a nurse. And so UAB was always on my radar as far as what my next step would be in life.
What was it about nursing that you knew you wanted to do it when you were that young?
It was intuitive. And I recall very clearly one day, my middle sister, who was 3 years younger than me, she fell off of her scooter. And I was outside, I witnessed it, and I picked her up, I carried her in the house, and I cleaned her wound. I found the antiseptic spray at the time that it was, cleaned it off, and got her all bandaged up. And my goal there was to be the big sister hero. And I didn't realize how much of an impact it would have on me. But I remember that being one of my very first memories of knowing that nursing would be my thing.
That maternal instinct that you had, was that just because you were the oldest of the other two, the three girls in the family?
I would like to think so. I would like to think my maternal instinct was just a built-in capability of mine. I think that it came naturally, just based on the order in which I came in the family, being the big sister there. My mother was a young mother, and she relied on me a lot. And we were really a cohesive group because we were so very close. And I always wanted to help. I wanted to make sure I helped nurture and take care of my younger siblings because not only were they important to me, they were my friends. So you take care of your circle. That's the way I thought of it.
You mentioned previously that as you were growing up, you knew nursing, for one, but you also had an eye on UAB. Why was it UAB that drew your interest?
UAB became a staple in my growth for nursing and my pursuit for nursing because I came to visit Birmingham one day and I saw the college just in passing and got curious about it, began to do a lot of research online. Not only that, I started to receive some marketing via snail mail at the time that kind of captured my eye. And there was something that stood out about that green and gold. I realized that being mentioned at the time as one of the top schools in the nation, rather the top school in, I consider, Alabama for healthcare focus and research alike. I knew that not only would my creativity part of nursing be something that was related to social science and the art of nursing, and that's what it encompasses, but I also knew that I was a naturally curious person that someday might want to pursue research. And what better institution to decide to remain curious about than the one that was right there in your state. I also realized that growing up, I had a great responsibility inside of my family network. And because we were so tight knit, I also am a pretty curious person. So I wanted to meet all types of people. And UAB definitely showed me there was diversity here. Not only did my colleagues have diversity, I would read about research studies and World Health Organization components that we partner with as a university. So even at a young age, that natural curiosity stood out to me as being a driver for my choice in choosing UAB.
Where'd that curiosity come from?
I believe that curiosity comes from growing up in a family of educators.
Okay.
My two grandparents were educators. My grandfather and my grandmother both taught at the secondary and higher education level. And they started with me very early on in life. I can remember as early as probably 3 or 4. My grandparents did a lot of reading with me. We had a in-home library, so encyclopedias. I remember seeing the encyclopedias. I remember seeing human anatomy and physiology books from an early age. And so just having that conversation with them at the breakfast table and learning from them brought on my natural enthusiasm and curiosity for knowledge. I was tested as gifted at a very early age, and I really was curious about all things knowledge-based, really. And so my grandparents had a big influence in my life, and that's what drew out my curiosity.
UAB itself, you were here in the 2000s. What was the school like? What was campus like at that time? And then in particular, the School of Nursing.
In the early 2000s, UAB was a very commuter-based campus, believe it or not. The streets that you see, some still exist, but very few still exist. So there was a commuter community. It was laid out that way. My mind's eye takes me back to like a pictorial memory of how I remember parking a distance, having to walk to lots of my classes that were kind of spread around in the campus. I remember there being a lot of not much green space at all, but I remember there being more of a community gathering at the Hill Center at the time. And so there were a lot of sororities and fraternities and student organizations and a lot of student-based activities and events that kind of brought us together as a hub. And that is what I think that made that community a little bit more sacred, away from that visual of it just being a separate commuter-based drive-through campus. For me, I remember there being a tone of both seriousness, because it was a commuter-based campus. It looked like things were very separated, but that seriousness gave me the motivation to want to connect and find out how to build a network, number one. Also how to quickly gain mentorship so that I could bring in that closeness and know more about the infrastructure of what UAB had to offer and what it encompassed. And then also the School of Nursing always would catch my eye, because you remember I mentioned earlier that trip that I made to Birmingham that one time. Someone in the car pointed it out to me. And when they pointed out to me, I said, I'm going to go there. And that was years before I made the actual decision to attend the School of Nursing. So shortly, I decided to schedule a campus tour, and the School of Nursing was included. And something about it felt very comfortable. Something felt very at home for me. The faculty were welcoming. They seemed to have a very open and welcoming way of providing information about nursing at its basics, because at the time I didn't know a whole lot. You know enough as what you would know from the outside is being curious about it. But then they also let me know that they would be there to guide me in the direction of any area of interest that nursing had to offer. And once I learned that nursing could be so diverse, and you had a faculty that was enthusiastic about the healthcare sector and the care for patients, that is what truly brought me in. I think the very first thing that was mentioned in that School of Nursing conversation was the world-class patient care. And boy, did I want to be a part of that.
Who are some of the faculty members and mentors that you had in the School of Nursing?
Dr. Martha Dawson was a very solid mentor that I had inside of the School of Nursing. Also, Jean Riley was also, Dr. Elizabeth Stullenbarger was also a mentor of mine. There were some partnerships in the community that were tightly partnered with UAB academic side as well as the hospital side. So in the hospital side, a connecting person was Dr. Marcia Lowe. I met her through some of my pre-nursing courses or meetings, and she was an intricate part as well. So there wasn't just one, but if I had to point to one main mentor, it would be Dr. Martha Dawson, and she really showed me how to navigate the nursing program overall, as far as introduce me to those things that kind of would seem scary for a first-time student. And Dr. Jean also was a very intricate person in my development and matriculating through the program, because before I actually submitted for entry into the nursing program, I did some research on my own and found this mentorship program that was inviting those who were curious about nursing in. And she quickly took me by the hand and said, "Hey, I will be your mentor to answer any question that you have."
What was the end goal? Because when you look at the realm of nursing, there's a lot of different ways that you can go once you're done, once you have your degree. What did you want to do once you had your degree?
I didn't quite have a niche, a specific area nailed down. But to my advantage, UAB at the time offered a RN, registered nurse residency program. And that was the stairway or the gateway to something incredible. It allowed me to be that new graduate nurse, but remain curious and able to navigate through UAB health system and somewhat get to know the different areas. At the time, there were 3 acute rotations and 3 critical care rotations. So along that 6-month or greater path, I was able to start my nursing career alongside of my preceptors, who showed me the intricacies of their area of work. And I was able to be hands-on because at that time I was licensed, so I could be. So that was a very great opportunity for me to be able to take a little bit more time and learn and get to know where was my area of focus going to be as a new graduate nurse.
You wound up not only getting a bachelor's in nursing at UAB, you got your master's in nursing at UAB, and then you became part of the family as a member of the staff as an assistant nurse manager. So you kept it in the family for a while. Was that intentional to stay at UAB to continue the learning before you moved on?
Absolutely. UAB played such a pivotal and a very impactful influence on my new role as a nurse. As I mentioned before, I made the decision to come to UAB. I envisioned and manifested UAB. I decided that this is world-class education and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be a part of World Health collaborations. I wanted to be a part of the quality improvement and developmental phase of what nursing had to offer. At the time, I'd heard that there was some workforce retention shifts in nursing. And I thought that, I can help in that way. I can bring my art in that way. And so me having completed the residency and then becoming an assistant nurse manager was another growth aspect to who I would become as a nurse leader. I have to mention that I was a little bit fearful at first, but I knew I had the capacity to be that leader, just based on my history and my natural capability to want to help guide growth inside of nursing and help to impact patient care overall. And what better way to do that than to remain inside a facility that supported me in my growth as a leader. And not only my growth as a leader, someone who could envision helping other nurses and becoming that mentor for future nurses.
And that stems from that maternal instinct as that leader who wanted to be a nurse for the siblings, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that path, I feel like, just was a natural flow. The way that my upbringings shaped my attitude towards nurturing and the artful parts of who I naturally was, along with growth and learning the effects of human relationship as a part of my developmental growth, helped to lead the pathway into becoming interconnected into a system that supported me as my natural self, and then also helped with my developmental side.
As a nurse, what are you doing today?
Well, I recently, I was a chief nursing officer for an organization, and today I am a full-time doctoral PhD student who is focused on making a true impact inside of scholarship in nursing and the nursing science overall. It's been an incredible experience so far. It actually is another growth of mine as far as learning who I am. I can tell you now that I'm already being shaped even more. When you think you've mastered one sector of nursing, you actually grow even more and you learn more about yourself. Some things even surprise me to this day.
Through this whole process, as a 5-year-old, you mentioned that you already had an interest in becoming a nurse. What was the most surprising thing that you didn't realize about nursing when you were that young, or even as a teenager growing up in Tuscaloosa?
The thing that I didn't realize as a new nurse, a novice nurse, is that you would truly be embedded inside of all aspects of human life. You would get to see people at their happiest. You would get to witness people at their growth points where they become dependent, and they need that healing hand next to them to give them encouraging words. They need that person who is engulfed and interested in building a care plan that is optimal to them, going back to or returning to their optimal health. And I did not realize how much my patients would open my eyes to the care level that I had originally going in. I think my care became a different function inside of my life. It allowed me that empathy that it takes to be a part of an adult in this world now. So as a new nurse, I didn't realize how the patients would help me just as much as I helped them. So it was a pretty even exchange that I was not ready for, but I definitely was open to. And a lot of my patients I'd never forget to this day. Their stories stay with me.
You've got a great passion for nursing, but you also have a great passion for tea, of all things. Take me down the journey of tea, what it means to you and your family.
Tea is a creative wellness influence in my life. My grandmother, when I was younger, as I mentioned before, she and my mom partnered in my growth as a young child, as a family does. A family unit comes together to ensure that everyone gets what they need, right? And so a lot of times, a part of my care was that my grandmother was the healer in the family. She believed in natural remedy. She would make her own salves and taught me those recipes, and she would make her own teas. And I was very fascinated with how grandma's tea specifically would make me feel better when I was sick. And it took me years before it came to me as I was travel nursing at the time, where I really became curious and involved in my wellness. I began to change my wellness living. I became an enthusiast to all things herbal, plant-based living, as well as herbalism and plant therapy. Became an interest of mine. Naturopathic medicine as a tail to nursing outside of Western medicine. And so the tea to me became, as I mentioned before, a passion project of how much of this natural remedy can be healing, be a part of the healing aspect, and also how could it shape in my future. And so I began to creatively blend teas and learn medicinal purposes for tea, the natural purposes of tea, and the functions of the different herbs and leaves and plants and how they come together to create healing property. And from there, I shared my teas with friends. It was a conversation that took place between both people that I knew and then strangers, because as as life would have it, I would take my tea with me. And so I can recall being in spaces like in an airport, and I had my tea there, and someone would ask, well, what's that? And so it would spark conversation. And from those conversations and from those friends who I shared my passion with and shared the tea with, they began to ask for it even more often. And if they appreciated tea and the healing properties, strangers appreciated it as well. And so someone nudged me one day and said, hey, you should probably start to retail your tea. So I became serious about it, and I did. And I decided to make it not only into a company that promoted wellness, but a way to bring community. And so I developed these events called Tea and Talk, backed by the tea, and it would encompass these natural conversations between both strangers, friends, and some healthcare professional friends alike. And we would have natural dialogue and discuss our healing and discuss things that seemed overly complicated as it related to nursing. And we kind of simplified those through basic conversations. And through those conversations, the tea just grew. And we landed inside of spaces that I never could imagine. So I began to sell the tea at markets. And from the market space, we then scaled to our local Piggly Wiggly stores.
The company itself is Taste Drink Well, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
Where do you see this company going? Where do you want it to grow to?
I would like this company to grow to all of the people who believe in healing and drinking well. I believe that if you have a need to be on the better path of who you are, you can change your mood at any time, and tea can influence that. We have 4 flavors: chill, refresh, lit, and power. Those are all enthusiastic words to you change your mood and drink your mood. So tea helps to align you back into the nature of who you want to be and to provide you that space that allows healing and conversation.
What's next for Miracle Reese?
What's next for Miracle Reese is to continue my scholarship, continue to bring people together through wellness and enthusiasm in wellness, is to continue to nurse the world the best I can to my best ability. I will continue to truly define my growth as a person and be that leader that I am naturally. I would love to continue to learn because I am a lifelong learner. And most importantly, impact through research that will help shape all of Birmingham and the world.
That's Miracle Reese, a 2-time graduate of the School of Nursing, where she earned her Bachelor of Science in Nursing in 2008 and Master of Science in Nursing in 2017. Now a successful nursepreneur, Miracle embodies the true spirit of what it means to be a blazer.
Being a blazer means to be brave. The B from blazer to bravery stands out. Blazers don't stop. That fire just keeps going. And even if it dims, it never goes out. You can turn the fire up, and if it flickers, you can still make sure it stays lit. So blazers are brave. I think that blazers have this passion and this incredible ability to adjust throughout life, career. And to me, a blazer never stops. The blazer keeps a tenacity about himself or herself, and they keep going to keep that fire burning and that passion going to make world-renowned change. That to me is what a blazer is.
Be sure to check out past episodes of the UAB Green and Told podcast. Listen in at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told. Have a story to share or know someone who does? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media. Just search UAB Alumni on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.